Hello everybody and welcome to my new My Team career mode for F1 22, and as you can see here, this is my team. So let's zoom in a little bit more on some of the specifics as we look at our first driver here, who is Sam Bird. Now if you don't know who Sam Bird is, he is a Formula E driver currently driving for Jaguar Racing. And the reason why I've brought him into this new My Team of mine as our first driver is because of his experience. Sam Bird has had 96 races currently in Formula E, and through those 96 races, he's taken 22 podiums, 11 wins, 6 pole positions. He's had 738 career points in total, and he's finished in the championship at a highest of third. So when it comes to sort of an experienced driver, he is 35 years old, and so a little bit like an Alonso at Alpine or a Vettel at Aston, for a new project like this team is, I feel like having one experienced driver such as Sam Bird who can give us a lot of in-depth detail, especially coming from Formula E, I feel like that's super important and super key to sort of the first year of this team, kicking it off in a good stead and making sure that things like development and stuff we are on with it and keeping up with the competition. Now next up, I want to talk a little bit about our second driver. Now our second driver is the youth driver, the more inexperienced but the prospect driver that I'm kind of hoping to have a long team career with the team and kind of like not necessarily build around them, but they'll grow as the team grows as well. So Sam Bird is here for the experience, whereas our second driver, Dan Ticktum, is here to grow with the team and hopefully become somewhat of a Formula One champion driver as the car becomes a championship winning car. Fingers crossed it does. Let's hope it actually gets to that point. But that is the goal. So Dan Ticktum is going to be around with the team for a long time, and currently also from Formula E. So we're bringing two drivers who are participating in Formula E into Formula One here. So, possibly a bit of a shaky start, but they'll pick up the cars quick. And Dan Ticktum has also raced in Formula 2. He's currently only had 12 races in Formula E, and his highest race finish position is 10th. So he's only got one career point, but I trust in him. Like I say, right now, the experience and the development's coming from Sam Bird, whereas Ticktum is here just to grow and sort of learn as the car grows. So that is it for our second driver, or for both our drivers there, Sam Bird and Dan Ticktum. And now let's talk about the engine. So we've gone with a Renault engine. That's because cash is low. We are a new coming team, and I couldn't afford any other engine with our sponsorship money that we got and still bring in Dan Ticktum. Now, we really wanted Dan Ticktum because, like I say, he's a prospect. He's going to grow with the team. But also, this team, UnHinged Racing, as you can see at the top, UnHinged Racing, is a British team. And so Sam Bird, British, Dan Ticktum, British. I wanted two British drivers to kick it off. We might not always stay that way, but for now, two British drivers to come along with the British team. And here is our livery for the first season in Formula One. As you can see, purple is going to be sort of the main colour. That's the colour that will be displayed. And then for this sort of secondary, it's almost a bit Brawn GP, but it's just kind of colours I've always used. I've really liked this. It's like a chartreusey colour. I think it goes super well with the purple, and then making the rest of that car that silver white, especially with the black underfloor and black wing, looks so nice. And then this is our logo. It's as close as I could get to sort of something that looked like Unhinged. It's kind of like a U and a H. I think it looks really nice, and it looks super nice on the pit crew uniforms when you see that as we jump into the first race later on in this episode. So keep an eye on that. But here is the livery reveal, showing off that livery that you just saw under the lights in a bit more of a spotlight, and I think it looks super nice, especially for our first season. And the sponsor on the side actually suits the car quite well. It fits the placement. I'm really happy with it. I like our livery for this first season. So now let's hop into actually running this team and getting into the Bahrain Grand Prix. Very exciting times. And as you can see here, when I'm filling up the calendar, the first thing I go for is that driver training camp. Like I say, we're building up Tictum as much as building up the team. And as I say that, we also grab some team acclaim there. We can't fit everything else on the calendar. So build up the second driver and build up the team. Two massive, massive things we will definitely be focusing on. And then I have a little look in here, but like I say, we could barely just afford Tictum and a Renault engine. So no purchasing of facilities yet, but we can grab a little bit of R&D starting off on the chassis, which is super important. And I mean, just look at those overalls. The overalls on these two drivers look amazing, as well as Dan Tictum's Focus, 84 Focus there. So hopefully he kind of hits the ground running a little bit. I would certainly like to see that as we get into the first race. I also just want to quickly add this main sponsor on the rear wing. It just looks a bit bland without it, and I decided to go for that chartreusey colour again. I think it suits it, especially with the white background, and so that is now on the car. I think it looks a lot nicer there with something on the rear wing. And as we head into here, let's advance the calendar towards our very first Grand Prix. Exciting times. And here we're hit with a department thing here, and it's asking whether we should improve our second driver's pace or awareness. You can see the choice was pretty easy for me there. I don't mind if he crashes the car. Yes, okay, we might not have a lot of money, but I want to see him. I'd rather he crashes the car while he's up in the points than drive carefully and not be in the points. That's my kind of philosophy. And as we get a few more things here, you can see we bang in 2 more R&D. So we've got 3 R&D things coming up, which should put us a little closer to Haas, who are just above us there. But anyway, let's hop in now to our first race weekend in Bahrain as we hit qualifying for the start of this 2022 season. Very, very excited there. As you can see, Dan Bird, his helmet's looking very nice, matching the colour scheme of the suit. And now, let's follow Dan Tictum as he goes out to set the first ever lap for a UnHinged Racing car. Looks really nice. I really like the design of that halo, especially with those sort of chartreuse neon lines cutting through it. And this car does look really, really nice, especially under the lights here in Bahrain. I don't mean to hype it up too much, but I do like it. So Dan Tictum, the first guy to set a competitive lap in this car. This is the start now of our journey in Formula One. This is it. The beginning, and it looks like the car is hooked up pretty well. I mean, it's hard to tell this early on, but you know, no mess up so far, no lockups into turns, no going deep, not even really any major twitches. One of the hardest corners here as you come through this left-hander, and Tictum's just riding it around there perfectly. So possibly even a bit of slipstream from this car ahead as we look to get sort of to the halfway point of this lap now. Sending it into the fast left-hander here, making sure to keep the power steady as you head up the hill here and switch into the right. Can we take this flat? I wonder. Hopefully so, as Dan Tictum flies around there, heading into the penultimate corner now and down the straight again. Fingers crossed, getting a bit of slipstream from that car ahead. I don't know what the car ahead is. And now setting up the braking point, turning in to the final corner, getting as much exit speed as we can, trying to stay off that curb on the left and taking it in as the DRS pops open. And Dan Tictum, provisionally obviously, goes P8, but he's beating people like Gasly, Ocon and Albon. So ahead of the AlphaTauris and the Alpines, which is surprising, as now Dan Bird goes out to set his very first lap and the second ever lap in the unhinged car. As you can see here, heading in to turn 1. Keeping it nice and clean, getting the power on, getting as close as you can to that left-hander without, you know, breaking track limits, opening the DRS and heading into this right-hander. You want to keep it nice and clean here. Get just up to the curve, but don't ride it, and then send it right out wide. Now, this is a tricky corner. I do really like it. But Dan Bird there, just getting a bit deep, not quite hooking it up as nicely as you'd hope, as he sends it into this almost hairpin-esque corner, taking it around to the right, and here we go into the hardest, one of the funnest as well, turns on the Bahrain circuit. And if you hit that curb on the right in this new game, I've noticed that it really sends you flying. You either kind of skid off and beat yourself on the curb and just like head straight, or even worse, you spin right around and it can really throw you off. So hitting the curb on that corner, not advised. But obviously both of the drivers so far, Ticktum and Bird, staying well off it, which is amazing to see. Bit wonky, a bit jittery going into that right-hander here as we head down. I think it was 5 tenths up on Gasly from what I just saw in the top left there. As we now fly into the final corner. Perfect bit of placement there against that curb on the inside. Not quite using as much track as possible, perhaps. DRS flying open. And he goes just above Ticktum. So, looking like right now, both our drivers are practically in the same sort of pace range, which is kind of good to see. It's good to see at least that none of our drivers are falling super far behind the other, as now we're going to follow Bird here for the final lap of Q1. Ticktum went out ahead of us, I believe, so we'll see if he jumps up on the left hand side there on the leaderboard. And now the final lap with 10 seconds left of qualifying begins, and this is important here to see whether or not we can improve, because right now P16 would get us into Q2, but as you can see instantly there with Gasly improving to P16, falling out of that. So any little improvement here, as you can see already 1/10, nearly 2 tenths up through the first section, any improvements here could put our car into Q2 in the very first ever qualifying session, which would be amazing to see. And obviously if both of our drivers seem to look like they're about the same pace as they do now, 2 cars into Q2 would be well above expectation when it comes to this first ever race. As you can see, just teetering around that sort of 1/10, 2/10 improvement right now. So not massive improvement as of yet, but I know there's definitely time to be found in the later half of this lap, because Bird went in a little bit shaky through one of the right-handers further up here. So like I say, hovering around that 2/10 zone, but at least some improvement. Even if it's not much, it's still something. Moving well into the 2/10 now, almost 3/10 as we head round here. And this is the corner that Bird messed up last time, hooking it in a lot nicer. And as you can see as we come around the exit, the speed going into this straight massively improves the lap. 3/10 up, and now it's just one more corner left, and hopefully the amount of improvement we've seen here with 3/10, nearly 4 perhaps, or actually dropping a bit of time on the run, but DRS flies open, and it is an improvement. And I believe, let's see here, it's P14 for Sam Bird. So we have instantly, in our first ever session, got a car into Q2, and Dan Ticktum, yes, okay, knocked out in Q1, but for the rookie driver between these two, obviously both new to Formula 1, but Dan Ticktum, the little bit less experienced driver, so close to getting out of Q1 in P18, so not a bad position. And now we head on board here. Oh, no we don't. That was actually, I remember why I included that. That was just like a sort of banker lap on some old softs. And as you can see, it was well off the pace. I was hoping to kind of maybe jump like Vettel or something with just a little bit of a banker lap on some old softs. But anyway, we pop on the new softs using another set here now. So we've used 3 sets of softs in qualifying. And as we round the turn here, letting those 2 drivers ahead go, and setting off here with Sam Bird on the first ever Q2 lap. And can he possibly make this lap work and get into Q3? I really doubt it. I honestly didn't expect too much of our cars even to get into Q2. And as you can see, going a bit deep there into turn 1. Still some time improvement on those old softs, obviously using the new set of softs. But I honestly barely expected to get into Q2. A Q2 would have been a nice accomplishment, just kind of like a cherry on top of this season starter, getting into Q2 with the one car that we have so far with Sam Bird here. So Q3 almost feels unimaginable and a little bit unattainable. I think if we manage to somehow get into Q3, then it's something to do with the track and not the car. Or Sam Bird is just an absolute excellence when it comes to this kind of stuff. But this is why we brought him on board in the team. We kind of knew that for the start of the season at least, Sam Bird's the experienced guy, a lot more racing time and a lot more racing knowledge, and we kind of knew that he's going to come in and hopefully carry the team through development into the first half of the season, and maybe after the season break halfway through, Dan Ticktum really clicks and takes over the team as the car develops. He's also developed, as I've said a million times now this episode. Heading in now to the final corner, you can see it's a really, really big time gain. Obviously, that is a time gain compared to an old set of softs. But still 8/10ths up, and as we cross the line, is it enough to get into Q3? It is not, but it is still an improvement in P13 and a shock exit in Q2 there as Lewis Hamilton is knocked out, and somehow Yuki Tsunoda, bear in mind that Gasly was knocked out in Q1, into Q3. So now then, let's take a look at the grid standings after that Q3 session that we were obviously not in with any of our cars here at the Bahrain Grand Prix, getting ready for the race. So, the starting grid for the race on pole, Carlos Sainz puts it on pole with Charles Leclerc P2, suggesting the Ferrari have a lot of the early season pace here. And now, locking out the second row, both of the Red Bulls, Verstappen ahead of Perez, then Russell and Valtteri Bottas, amazing stuff, out-qualifying Hamilton. Norris, Alonso there, Magnussen and then Tsunoda round out the top 10 as we see Mick Schumacher 11 and Hamilton 12. There's Sam Bird, P13 with Zhou 14, Danny Rick and Vettel there, Gasly and then our second driver Tickton in P18, Latifi and Ocon really far back I think there, and Albon and Stroll round out the grid for our very first Grand Prix. And so here we go then, 5 red lights on the board and off we go in our very first race, at the very first race of these new cars, new regulations in the 2022 season, the very first race for Unhinged, and Sam Bird trying to go for a gap that just closed in on him. Zhou there locking up, and Ocon, who remember from the starting grid was somewhere down in P20, is now P12, so a ridiculous start for Ocon as Sam Bird here looks to move past Mick Schumacher and reclaim P13, sending it down the inside of Ocon. Is there enough mid-apex traction here to pull through and pass Ocon? It looks like there is as they head into this twisty section. 2 cars going through here side by side, very risky as Mick Schumacher now clips Sam Bird, the hand going up in the air, and not quite sending a move as viciously on Ocon as Sam Bird manages to take the position back from Schumacher and retain P13 where he started. Schumacher still pressuring, however, going in the inside of this very crazy corner here. I did not expect to see 2 cars going through there. The AI on this game, incredible, much more improved from the last game, I think. And now Schumacher still trying to get on the inside, which is just slowing down these two. As you can see, Ocon making a bit of a gap, and it looks as though Schumacher is going to get the pass. And now Zhou having a go, pushing Sam Bird wide. Zhou having to move in a little bit, meaning that Sam Bird is going to get a lot of exit speed there. And so P14, it looks like, coming into the final corner. So only 1 position lost. But actually, as I say that, a ridiculous dive bomb here from Sam Bird, sending it down the inside of Mick Schumacher. No love lost between these two at the start of this race, with a battle going on between them. And so, as George Russell pits with damage from the first lap, we have actually moved up 1 position. And a bit of debris there flying off from someone's front wing ahead, which could suggest that someone else ahead has damage, which maybe means that this pack that we are behind now with Sam Bird could be quite slow and could be up for grabs, as now Sam Bird sends it down the inside, goes past 1, goes past 2, and is now side by side having a look in on Tsunoda, and this now means Sam Bird running in the points, P10, as he sends it down the inside, launching it in. No bars hold, or whatever the saying is, no prisoners lost, or whatever saying you want to use here for Sam Bird, as he is just sending every opportunity he gets here, using his racecraft experience from Formula E. Those cars are a lot more nimble and a bit more able to throw in crazy moves. But anyway, moving back to Dan Tickton now, who has held position on the first lap, so still a decent start holding position, but compared to Sam Bird, who has moved up into P9 and in the points now, you know, this looks somehow holding position looks bad compared to Sam Bird. But obviously, again, Dan Tickton, the rookie, the younger guy here, a lot more of a leeway with Dan Tickton and his driving as he gets used to, like I say, builds up as the car builds up. But he's still hanging onto the back here of Pierre Gasly, Daniel Ricciardo, and the rest of the drivers in this group, as we can also see now Yuki Tsunoda, who pits, and obviously that suggests that that bit of debris that we saw on board with Sam Bird heading into the turn 1 of the last lap must have come off of Yuki Tsunoda's car. And I mean, we got the impression from that, the way that Sam Bird was so easily able to send it down the inside and pass Yuki Tsunoda. So, bit of damage there for both of those guys, Russell and Tsunoda, at early stages in this race. And so, I'm sure they're not happy, especially with the fact that Tsunoda qualified P10, an insane qualifying, especially when you compare it to the likes of Pierre Gasly. So, probably not happy at all. A lot of swearing going on his team radio. But we're focusing on Dan Ticktum here now as he follows this group ahead and is keeping up with them nicely. Obviously now moved up to P7 with that incident for Tsunoda. And so, can he make anything of this slower group ahead, or is it going to be a little bit of a train situation around here? Let's keep on board with Dan Ticktum and find out. Hopefully he's able to sort of capitalise on something if a driver makes a mistake, or even if just two of the guys ahead like Gasly and Ricciardo start to battle, then maybe the slowness of the battle there between those two means that possibly he'll have a chance to move up. And it would be nice to see Dan Ticktum putting on the pressure and moving up, considering that his teammate is in the points. And honestly, coming into this first race at Bahrain, there was not a chance I thought points would be on the cards. You know, I'd have liked to push for them, and I thought that maybe getting close to them certainly might have been on the cards into this first race. You know, we are third from the bottom, so we're ahead of, I believe, Williams and Aston Martin when it comes to the R&D chart. So, you know, I didn't expect us to be doing amazingly, but the fact that Sam Bird is in P9 and holding it right now from Ocon, incredible. So I would love to see Dan Ticktum try and start to make a little bit of work on the drivers ahead, and fingers crossed move a little bit closer to Sam Bird. And I mean, double points, I'm not even going to expect it now. I'm not even going to say anything about it, but if it happens, just know that for our first ever race, that would be ridiculous now. And it feels like Ticktum is just nicely staying behind these guys, not exactly trying to attack. I thought Ricciardo ahead there looked like he was moving out to try and make a move, but it seems like this group, and I think the group stretches as far forward as like Schumacher and Magnussen. Yeah, I think it goes up to Magnussen there, as you can see on the thing. He's 2.7 seconds behind Zhou. So there's something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars in this train right now, and so hopefully one of them makes a move. As you can see ahead now, it looks like someone's sending a dive in, and that is some more debris going flying there. And now you can see that 1, 2 drivers fly into the pits from Dan Ticktum's point of view, and so that means that now Dan Ticktum P13 and Sam Bird here battling with Esteban Ocon to get P8. And the reason for that, I believe that one of the drivers, Valtteri Bottas, who was flying high at the start of this race, also seems to have incurred some damage, or is maybe just stopped early. I'm not sure what the story is with Valtteri, but because of the fact that he's had to pit now as well, Sam Bird has been bumped up a position, and so has Dan Ticktum. So now running P8 and P13 in this Grand Prix. And for our very first Grand Prix, this is ridiculous. This is not at all the levels I was hoping, expecting to come into. I definitely was hoping for it, and I mean, it's here right in front of our eyes. Sam Bird now battling with Ocon. I'm sure the DRS is flown open here, but it just doesn't look like he's got the pace down the straight. Maybe, I was going to say maybe to do with our Renault engine, but of course Alpine, Renault themselves, the only other team running the Renault engine. So let's see how these two cars actually match up. Possibly we can judge our car against the Alpine here and see whether or not we have something that could battle in the midfield, which would be insane to see from the start of this race. As now, Sam Bird moving well over there, and Mick Schumacher pushing him right over, then switching back to claim the apex or the racing line. And so I believe this lap now is Sam Bird's lap to come in and pit. So he's staying in the DRS here of Ocon, going a little deep into turn 1, but just making sure that he stays in the DRS of Ocon so that this in-lap is as fast as it can possibly be. As you can see here, really getting in the slipstream, moving down, almost looking like he wanted to try and make a send, but way too far back for that. And so if he can just keep on the pace and stay with Ocon here, if this in-lap, one more DRS zone to go down this sort of middle straight as we're approaching it here, this could be a brilliant in-lap. And with all the people that have got damage behind and whatnot, like Russell and Bottas and Tsunoda, if we can still stay ahead of those guys, yes, okay, we'll have fresher tyres, so maybe we'll be able to challenge them even if we come out behind them. But if we can stay ahead of those guys when we come out of the pits, we could definitely be on for some good points here at our first race, which would be ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, in fact. So, rounding here and heading into the penultimate corner. Again, let's see how much slipstream, maybe deploying a bit of ERS because we'll be able to recover it in the pits. Let's see how fast we can get down here. You can see Ocon really dragging us along with that slipstream, really just going and going. And now heading into the final corner, let's jump into the pits here with Sam Bird in his scheduled pitting lap here for the strategy. And let's see how good our pit crew is. This is it. This is a test now. Are we Red Bull levels or are we, Mercedes Bottas levels? Let's see how our pit crew deals with their very first ever stop. And also keep an eye on these overalls because I think they look amazing, especially with the logo on the back. And it looks like a super quick stop. That was perfect. And you can see Sam Bird has actually jumped Ocon in the pits because of how amazing that pit stop was, how quick it was. It felt quick just watching it. Bird has now jumped ahead of Ocon through the pit stop process, meaning that I think provisionally running somewhere about P5 or P6. Obviously there's like Perez and Russell ahead, but now let's cut to Dan Ticktum because I believe that this is his in-lap. So we've held out a little bit compared to some other people. We've held out our stops, and you can see actually that the top three here, Sainz, Leclerc and Verstappen, have also held out on their stops. Ridiculously though, somehow Carlos Sainz is leading and winning this Grand Prix by 23 seconds. So I don't know what is in the back of his car, but he is on fire today. And so Dan Ticktum now in a P4 currently, obviously only provisional, but heading around the penultimate corner, heading down this straight. No slipstream like Dan Bird had with Ocon, but hopefully still a pretty good in-lap. And let's see, Sam Bird currently running P12. I think I accidentally just called him Dan before. Please, if I've ever called him Dan, it's because Dan Ticktum and Sam Bird. But anyway, Dan Ticktum heading into the pits and hopefully just as good of a stop as we got with Sam Bird. And let's see where he comes out. So if Sam is currently running in P12, Ticktum will come out a little behind that, probably around where Gasly is, P16. Let's see. Here's the stop. Is it as quick as the one with Sam Bird? It's slightly slower, I think, maybe just a little, but still a good stop, staying well ahead of Latifi. As you can see, Sam Bird overtaken, and Dan Ticktum coming out P17. So quite far down, but still right behind this group ahead. Taking the first corner a little awkwardly there, but still right behind this group ahead of him. So fingers crossed that with these medium tyres, once he gets them into the heat, he will be able to sort of get on the back of that group like he was running earlier in this race and see. But as I throw up the POV here of Zhou, who is just ahead of Dan Ticktum, just heading around that corner, you can see that Zhou spins out, and as Dan Ticktum now rounds this corner, there's a huge train as both of the AlphaTauris and the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo got stuck behind Zhou as he span. And so now the safety car is out. Let's take a replay here. Following from Gasly's point of view, you can see Zhou just spins and then Gasly nowhere to go. He could have maybe flung it right, and Dan Ticktum lucky to not get caught up. And then a whole lot of F1 game mess occurs after that. Both the Williams actually here collided as Albon went into the back of Latifi as well during that. So a lot of crashes going on there, and obviously, as I say, the full safety car, not a VSC, but the full safety car is out. And so now we have Sam Bird in P10 and Dan Ticktum in P13, both on fresh mediums that will go to the end of this Grand Prix. And so the chance for double points has looked even more likely now, as Dan Ticktum is in P13, which, I mean, he came out the pits in P17, and obviously with that crash that occurred, amazingly P13 now, and genuinely the chance for double points is ridiculously, like, the fact that when I was coming into this first race weekend, I thought it was unfathomable, and now genuinely possible. Sam Bird running in the points, Dan Ticktum only just on the cusp of them, and obviously will be right up behind Magnussen and Ocon when this safety car occurs. So let's follow on board here with Sam Bird as we catch the safety car queue. So we're on lap 9 now, and I would imagine, looking at how far back Sam Bird here, and obviously the rest of the field will be from the safety car queue, we'll probably be cracking back on with this race around about the start of lap 11, right? The end of lap 10, start of lap 11, probably about where the safety car comes in. So as Sam Bird joins the back of the safety car queue here, let's take a couple of shots and a couple of glances at how our car looks under these night lights, following it round here in the rest of the queue. I think the livery for Season 1, I'm sure that you'll all agree, is a really nice livery. I love that purple and silvery white, but then also the way that chartreuse highlight comes through. I absolutely love it. And I also cannot lie, the pit overalls, beautiful. So I've cut ahead a little bit here just to skip out the safety car because no one wants to really watch that. And now this is it, end of lap 10, start of lap 11, just as I called. It's the start of racing, and Sam Bird, a little bit too optimistic there, trying to go for a move on Valtteri Bottas before the green flags even showed and had to back out. Ocon now coming down the inside, and Valtteri Bottas crashes ahead. Ticktum involved in the crash, and Ticktum is hit from behind and out of this race. So went from P13 there, he was P13, and now because of Bottas's crash ahead, Bottas just seemed to lock up and go into the driver ahead, and now that means Ticktum out of this race. Ticktum actually seemed to get the brakes on and looked like he was going to stay out of the crash, and someone from behind just absolutely obliterated him and rear-ended him, and his front left is just gone smashing off. And if you look at the leaderboard now, everyone from Valtteri Bottas down DNF'd. We have something like 9 DNFs there. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 DNFs this race. Let's take a replay at Dan Ticktum's point of view here. If you look at the Alfa Romeo ahead, he locks up, goes into the back of the McLaren, and Ticktum just chilling there. But the Williams and the Haas behind smash into him, and as you can see, a ridiculous collision. Now, the even more ridiculous thing about that collision is the fact that no safety car came out for that collision. Somehow, according to the game, that was not a safety car. Maybe all the cars just kind of ghosted, but now Lando Norris passing Sam Bird here. Can Sam Bird get an undercut? No, Norris covers it off. So, somehow not a safety car, and I really don't know how. But Lewis Hamilton now are pitting, I believe due to damage, meaning that Sam Bird moves up here as Ocon overtakes him, and we are running P9 with only 3 laps left of this Grand Prix, including the one we're on. And Sam Bird has been fighting with Ocon this whole race and seems to have a sort of equal measure of pace. At times maybe Ocon has maybe just ran away with it a little, but if Sam Bird can genuinely fight and keep Ocon somehow behind here for basically 2.5 laps, we could be looking at some serious points on our very first race. Points on our first race. Just saying it feels crazy, but then again, looking at that leaderboard and seeing 8 DNFs from 15 down to 22 also feels crazy. So I guess the situation has lended itself extremely well to some points in our very first race. Yes, okay, you could maybe say the crash played a lot with our chances of points, but don't forget that Sam Bird was running in points actually race pace wise almost from the start of this Grand Prix. He's been pushing around that P10 zone, fighting with Ocon, as I said before, who is currently ahead. So I feel like on merit we still could have possibly got points, but this crazy crash definitely increased the chance as Sam Bird gets a real step out of the back of the car there, a real tank stopper, but saves it thankfully. I cannot hack any more crashes this race. We've already seen 8 DNFs, and we've already seen our second driver, who, again, also looked like points could have been possible. He was running P13. I've seen him retire out of this race with a crash that was not his fault at all. He managed to somehow stay out of the back of Bottas, who crashed ahead of him. But the Williams and the Haas just not on the same kind of reflexes as Dan Ticktum, and rear-ending him, pushing him into the car ahead. Super unfortunate for Dan Ticktum. Obviously, we will not hold it against him. He was actually running P13, quite an impressive race up until that unfortunate little bit of event there. And now, our only hope in the end of this race, the experienced driver, Sam Bird. And now, we round here and head down to the final sort of DRS zone of this lap. And it's the penultimate lap. It's like 13 or 14. This is it. Can the Sam Bird do something here to get past Ocon and score the team some points? I mean, look, 2 points from P9, assuming that we keep Stroll behind. Already brilliant. 2 points for the start of the season. Okay, it might not sound crazy, but for a new coming team, never before raced an F1 weekend, 2 points is amazing. But if he can somehow get past Ocon, as we now round the final corner here and head down the main straight into the final lap of the race, DRS opens up. I'm sure all the ERS is being deployed. We are catching. Both of these cars, the Alpine and the Unhinged machines, using the same engine, and just sliding it in. Nearly contact. Sam getting a serious bit of a tank slapper there. And now Ocon staying ahead, but Sam will still have the DRS. And with that fighting, Lance Stroll out of nowhere. We go 3 wide into this turn. And Sam Bird takes it all the way around the outside there to pass both drivers and move into P8. Now, from what I saw there, Stroll sent it down the inside. And possibly there was some contact between Ocon and Stroll. Let's see whether or not their pace falls off towards the end of this Grand Prix. If a massive gap seems to open, then I think we can safely say Sam Bird has secured P8 here. But we run down there, and a huge bit of a oversteer, or a bit of a correction. And yes, I guess these tyres are just falling off. We've seen so many little moments like that. Perhaps our car not built for saving tyres as well as it should be. And because of that crazy moment and the fact that Ocon had DRS on us, Ocon flies past now, and so we have one final straight. I'm sure all the ERS in the world is being deployed right now. Lance Stroll definitely must have incurred some damage. He's a second behind us. Is there enough room to go for a send? Absolutely not. We were way too far back there. And so Sam Bird, unless we get an insane speed boost, finishing our very first race in P9. And incredibly, that is 2 points for the team. Our race winners were, of course, the Ferrari team, but it was the other way round. Sainz started on pole. Charles Leclerc has finished the race in the lead. Sainz still holding on for the Ferrari 1-2 and coming second. And Max Verstappen, the only Red Bull driver to finish on that podium today, coming in P3. So let's take a moment here for our race winner of the very, very first race in the 2022 season, the very first race win of these new cars, Charles Leclerc, who will now be leading the championship, and also his teammate behind him as well. So the battle against Verstappen, quite nice so far in terms of the first thing. As you can see, Checo Perez coming P4, Russell P5, Alonso incredibly P6. Great race for him. Oh God, as my throat dries up from me talking for so long. Ocon somehow going from P20 to P8. Probably driver of the day for Ocon. Incredible start. We saw him go from P20 to like P12 instantly. Sam Bird there in P9 picking up the team's first points, and Lance Stroll rounding out the points in P10. And now look at all these DNFs. Let's go through them. Tsunoda, Vettel, Gasly, Ricciardo, Latifi. Unfortunately, our guy Dan Ticktum, Magnussen and Bottas all DNFing in that huge safety car restart crash. What a great race. What an incredible season opener. And that is it.